Hello and welcome to Ink and Inspiration, the interview series produced by Write and Vibe Publishing. In this series, we dive deep into the world of writing and all the incredible individuals who support it. From authors to publishers, indie bookstores to agents, conference organizers, and more, we speak with the people who make up the vibrant writing community ecosystem. Whether you're an aspiring author or a seasoned professional, this series is for you. This is your host, Corey. It's time to get lit. Welcome, everybody, to our latest interview with Tesha Fritzgerald. She is an amazing woman, just overall great human being. I met her some years ago, and I first met you when we were in a class together through our church, New Community. Is that correct? Or was that Journeys?
Journey. Yeah, we
Journeys.
were
Okay.
in a small group.
A small group, yes. And she is her family's good people. She's good people. And I love her so much. And she became an author. And I will let her tell you all about it. So welcome, Tesha.
Thank you so much, Corey, for having me on. Yep, we've known each other for quite some time. I think I became a fan when you were doing Bit Better, Not Bitter.
Oh,
and
yes.
That's been a few years ago. And then meeting you and getting to know you has been such a joy. So thank you for just the role that you played in my life and for having me on for your community today. So
Yes.
my name is Tesha Fritzgerald. I am a lifelong educator and author of Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning. I have been a writer since I was in the second grade, and I'm a mom, an avid student of all kinds of books and speakers and philosophers. So I am a lifelong learner and always looking to find ways to teach along the path, lifting as I climb.
Well, that's one thing I didn't know. You said you've been a writer since you were in the second grade.
Since I was in the second grade. I remember
What?
I told my grandmother, when people would ask the question, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember I felt so invigorated. I was published for the first time when I was in the second grade in the school newspaper. And it was a
Nice.
poem, maybe about 6 lines. And I said, I want to be a writer. And my grandmother pulled me close and she said, no, you do not, because writers don't make any money.
Well, I mean, that's what a lot of us were told back in the day. And to an extent, like it was true, especially for Black people, Black women. So, I mean, things have changed, and thankfully.
Yes, praise God.
Well, I guess that means we can start there, right? So my first question that I have for you is that you said you are an educator, but you said you've always wanted to be a writer. Recently, you did transition from education to full-time writing. So what was the pivotal moment or like realization that led you to make that decision?
I will say that from the moment that I made the declaration as a second grader that I wanted to be a writer, that it is a dream that has been in my heart since that moment. Writing is where I find peace. It's where I take out my pain, where I document my joy. Writing is a calling. And so, even if there are moments in my life where I pursue other careers like education, but I was an English teacher for a number of years, so writing was always in my life. The decision to be a writer full time actually came after I read a book by Jeff Goins. And basically, he talked about the fact that you don't have to wait to become a writer, you are a writer. And so after I read the book, and it's been maybe about 10 years, I knew that writing is my vocation, it is my calling. And so while I was doing other things, I always tried to find time to write, because I know that's when my heart and my soul would be at peace, is when I was doing what I was called to do.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your book and how that connects with how you write?
The book is titled Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning, Building Expressways to Success. It is an education book that is written for teachers and leaders, but parents have also found it beneficial. And so it really talks about how do we create and demand the education that Black and brown children deserve.
Mm.
Now, this book came out of, I taught in the classroom for about 8 years, and then I spent about 12 years as an educational administrator. And along the way, I learned lessons. I found key strategies to help students to be successful. And so this book is a culmination of these experiences that came together. While I was in the classroom and an administrator, I always would take time to journal, to write things down, to jot things down, even if it was on napkins, when there was a revelation or something that
Mm.
led to student learning or teacher success in the classroom. And so this book is the culmination of lots of scrap paper, little pieces here and there, ideas, stories that have come from over years of education. And I say all that to say, to the writing community, that God doesn't waste anything. So even if it
Mm.
feels like just one verse or maybe just one idea that you write down, good stewardship is keeping those ideas and holding them and harvesting them to the right time. So this book is a culmination of those ideas. I started writing it in 2017. And in 2017, I received a contract to write the book.
Mm.
However, I was battling this idea of voice. Do I have something to say? Will people read it? Will they listen? And all the while, I was still full time in the educational setting, and then
Mhm.
also doing workshops on the side to teach teachers strategies that will lead to success. And so I'm writing, I'm presenting, I'm consulting, I'm still working.
Mm.
Um, and
It's a lot.
so it's a lot to juggle. And I realized that every vacation, every spare moment, I was working virtually on the West Coast in the evenings after working full days on the East Coast. And so in 2021, I
Mhm.
had an opportunity to step away from that full time in the school district. And I had been in the district for 20 years. And so if you've been at a job for a long time, there are these ideas. And a friend of mine met with me and she said, "What is holding your feet in the cement? What is keeping you stuck?" And so we talked about some of the logistics, some of the
Mhm.
things that felt like security in that full
Yeah.
time work, and realized that these things can be worked out, and there are ways to think about benefits and retirement and things like that and still pursue what is on your heart.
So that had to be some of the challenges and uncertainties you faced. So could you go into a few more of them? Where was it only like the fear of like, well, what about my retirement? Because when you are employed by another agency, you do have a retirement package. And as a teacher, I'm sure it was a good one, I would believe. And then again, of course, like the income as well, right? Okay, well, what about my income? Will I still be able to sustain it? In one of the interviews I did, I asked the woman that question, and I was like, well, do you think that you would be able, I'm paraphrasing, but do you think that you would be able to make the jump, because she is a dentist and she's also a writer? And she said she was worried that if she did that, with the stress of being a full-time writer, would that then like suck all of the creativity out of her? So then she's like, because there's too much pressure to make sure that she's bringing in income. So let's talk about some of the challenges and maybe the uncertainties that you probably faced when making the decision, like, okay, I'm doing this full time. I'm all in on this.
The thing about writing is that you you're called to it. It's not that it's on the side or it's a little bit of this or that. You either are a writer or you're not. And even if you have another vocation that you pursue, writing is always a part of your identity, is always a part of who you are.
Mm.
And so when we think about those uncertainties and challenges, what we have to realize is whether we pursue writing full time or we stay in a different profession full time, there are going to be challenges and uncertainties. What
Mm.
I know for sure is that the Bible says your gift will make room for you. And I
Mhm.
didn't quite understand what that meant until I just leaned into opportunity. So when the doors were open, it would not be that I have kicked the door down and then I'm exhausted once the door opens. I
Mm-hmm.
waited for God to open the doors and then I walked
Mm.
through. And so if that meant writing for a small publication, writing for a friend that's doing a newsletter at the church, writing for all this time is what I was learning to develop this muscle of writing and allowing my gift to make room for me. And
Mm.
so when I took the leap of faith, and I called it my leap year because
Yeah.
there is this sense of security that sometimes can be false.
Mm.
But when you let your gift make room for you, you're certain that you have something to say. You're certain that you can lean into the higher power. Of course, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and I believe that God has an endless amount of inspiration and an endless amount of capacity that He lends to me. And so I don't have to be fearful that I won't have something to say. And when that fear pops up, I know that I need to align myself back with my source. And so the challenges and uncertainties of the financial piece actually come into alignment when you trust God as your provider. And
Mm.
so God began to open doors for me to speak and consult, which also fueled my writing. Um, and when I realized, like, okay, I'm holding on to what I perceive to be secure, but what he's showing me is that the gift, and when he's making room for my gift, that it is providing for my family, is providing for the things that I need. And I had to really take a moment and take stock to see, okay, where am I?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just God asking me to release what I believed to be secure for what was actually being secure, in knowing that I'm doing what He asked me to do. And so I would
Okay.
say, before taking this leap of it has to be a leap of faith, but it
Mm-hmm.
has to be a sustained um, method of trusting what God has given you to do. If you're uncertain and unsure, that's a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And when it is time to take the leap into full-time writing, speaking, consulting, whatever it is, into something different, then you will know it will not be a detriment to your family. It won't take you backward. And if you feel uncertain, be still until you know for sure. Taking
Mm.
the leap into full time, some people may not ever be full time in the traditional sense,
Mm-hmm.
but you are a writer. And once you know that you're a writer and you come to a sense of complete satisfaction with knowing that there are words that you place on the page for the betterment of lives on the other side. No
Mm.
matter what you write, whether it's enjoy, for enjoyment or for education or information, whatever the purpose is, there's someone on the other side that is served by your words. This brings confirmation to keep writing. And as you keep writing in alignment with what it is that you're called to do, you'll see those doors open. So be patient.
Ooh, you preaching. You preaching. Okay. You said something about making sure to stay disciplined and everything. And I remember, so the very first book I published was I Met a Guy by Valencia Joy. And she often says that when I came to her, she had something ready to publish. And so the story was it was during the pandemic, and I had switched from wanting to open up a writer center to wanting to be a publisher. And so as a writer, I didn't actually have anything that was ready to go. And so I reached out to her and asked her, do you have anything that we could do like a test on? And she said she did. Now, she did tell me later, she said that in the beginning, like not during the publishing part, but before, like during her life, there had been times where God had told her to start like writing down things. And had she not been obedient, she would not have had anything to publish when I came to her. And so she always preaches very similar to you about just writing, being disciplined, doing what God tells you to do, because you never know when you're going to be when you're going to have to pull that and be ready for that moment. So I like what you said. So like in in and that kind of goes with like fulfillment too, right? So in what ways do you find fulfillment in writing that you may not have experienced in your previous role as an educator? And so I always say that I am so appreciative of educators because they're with our kids, especially during the school year, more than the parents. They know the kids just as well as the parents, sometimes, if not better, and on top of that, they're teaching our children. So, like, because the parents are working, and even in the evenings or in the mornings, they're tired, they've come home. And so I'm always just so appreciative of educators and the jobs that they do, that they just like, yeah, like this is what I want to do. I want to be an educator. So in my mind, it's fulfilling. So is there a change in like how you find fulfillment now as a writer?
I'll tell you, I don't know if you know this about me, but I went to college on a full scholarship for engineering.
Oh,
Um,
did you?
I did. And in college, I had 3 internships because I was looking for this feeling of like passion. I was looking for the fulfillment um, in engineering. I was in engineering programs from the time I was in 7th grade to 12th grade. And
No
what I knew,
way.
absolutely, I was groomed to be an engineer. And my brain is still somewhat engineering. And I love math, I love
Uh-huh.
science. And so I had this internship at Polytech. It's a minority owned engineering firm. They used to be in downtown Cleveland. And
Mhm.
so I was like, all right. So the Windermere Rapid Station, for the Clevelanders that are in here,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
helped to correct those AutoCAD drawings. That was my role for that internship. And I was like, all right, well, this is kind of cool, but
Mhm.
yeah, it just didn't give me that feeling of fulfillment or that passion. And so I
Mm.
thought maybe it was just Polytech. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna try a different internship. So I got a different internship for my between my freshman year and sophomore year in college, and it was at NASA. So I'm like, all right, if I'm supposed to be an engineer, then this is the one. So I was at
Yeah.
NASA, and I was on the Advanced Communication Technology satellite, and it was the first satellite to integrate voice and information data, acquiring the telemetry of the Earth stations, all the scientific things. And I struggled. I was the only Black person. I was the only female. I was the only person from America, the only person that was under 21. And
Oh,
I felt out of
wow.
place. Nobody would really talk to me. It was like Hidden Figures, but 1997. And
Oh,
so
man.
I felt like if this was my passion, then I would be able to withstand the isolation. But
Mm,
now I'm isolated and this doesn't bring me joy. And
mm.
so, true to Andra Tisha ridiculous form, I'm like, all right, I'm going to try one more internship. And so I had an internship in the chemical engineering department at Cleveland State. I had taken honors chemistry 2 and 3 at the college level. I
Uh-huh.
love science. I love math. And in this lab, the people were nice and friendly. I was working on like a biochemical protein behavior. So I was learning a lot
Mhm.
along the way, but I still didn't have that feeling of joy, fulfillment, or purpose. And
Mm.
so I remember talking to my mom, and I thought that she was going to be all upset because I'm like, I'm changing my major. This is not for me. If I was supposed to be an
Yeah.
engineer, I would feel that joy, and I don't feel it. And so I switched my major to English, and I really didn't know what I was going to do with it. I know that writing is a passion. I told you in 2nd grade, I identified that I love to write. I had
Yeah.
notebooks filled with writing. And even when I was sad and lonely at NASA,
Mhm.
in the afternoons or the evenings when I would come home, I would write poetry, and I wrote a book of poetry on that summer called Cycle of Tears because I was just tired of crying about engineering. So in my
Okay.
NASA lab book is where I wrote poems. And so this was an indicator to me that writing brings you joy. And I
Mm.
also learned, because I made a ton of money in my internships, that
Mhm.
money is not a motivator that was effective enough to fulfill me. That money was
Right.
great. And I was saving up trying to get a car at the time, I was
Yeah.
19. And but it wasn't enough. I
Mm.
had to realize and be honest with myself because I could have forced my way through that engineering program. My grades
Mhm.
were pretty good. I had a good understanding or grasp of the science and things like that. But it wasn't enough to fulfill me to be isolated and push through for something that I knew I wasn't even called to. So I had to
Yeah.
come to this realization that engineering, while it is a great career, and while
Mhm.
my brain still exhibits some of the characteristics of problem solving and
Mhm.
navigating that engineers have, I had to love that about myself and
Mhm.
know that my first love, my always love, whether my grandmother was right or wrong, I was going to pursue writing. This, when I switched my major to English, this
Mhm.
is when I found this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I get overwhelmed with joy because one of my English
Yeah.
teachers, Adrienne Goslin at Cleveland State, she
Mhm.
wrote on one of my papers. This was my first semester as a English major. She said, as an English major, right? Um,
Uh-huh.
she said, I hope you are an English major. I love to read your words. I
Oh,
still have this paper with this
yeah.
comment on it. This was confirmation. And so I think for writers, you will get this confirmation over and over again that your words mean something. You
Mm.
know that anyone can write, but
Yeah.
you'll know you're called to writing when your words serve others. My
Mm.
English professor, accomplished, degreed, expert, saw something in my writing that called me closer to the field. And so
Mm.
with this confirmation from her, and even in the if you're English major, you're always going to get a mixed bag of feedback on your writing. But if you can stay the course, even when someone thinks that your writing is a 1 star, and you feel like, okay, thank you for your feedback. I'm going to keep the meat, spit out the bones.
Mm.
Nothing can deter me from this path. In
Mm.
engineering, the isolation was like, do I really want to do this? But in
Yeah.
writing, if there were times of isolation or moments where I felt like I was being overly criticized, I
Uh-huh.
could take it. I literally would sit in it, take it in, and really let it fuel the writing that emerged from it. There was
Mm.
nothing that could ever stop me from being a writer. And as I see that same kind of grit emerge in my children, who both
Mhm.
take joy in writing, they
Yeah.
also take joy in reading others' words and sending words to them when those words make a difference. And so
Mm.
the challenges and the uncertainties cannot deter me from what my life's purpose is, and that is to write. Nothing that comes in or comes at me, whether the review for my book is a 1 star or a 5 star, will deter me from the purpose that's on my life. And that is to write. My words are here to serve others on the other side. And at the same time, faith encourages faith. So whether the feedback is positive or negative, it fuels the gift of writing that's inside of me.
Nice. This was amazing. So with all of that, do you find that people are already asking you for a book number two, a follow-up? And if so, are you working on one?
People are asking for a follow-up. And so in the interim, because
Mhm.
writing is it is a privilege and it is a
Mhm.
joy. In between book number one and book number two, I'm under contract for book
Mm.
number two. And so
Nice.
it's in process, but that hasn't stopped me from writing. And if I run into roadblocks while writing a larger work, because any writer that's writing a book or that has written a book knows that it is a labor of love. You
Mhm.
literally have to fall in love, argue, fall in love again, and it's all just you and the page, right? But in between, I've written articles, collaborated with folks. I have some projects coming out. I published a chapter in a book that came out in Ireland, and there are a
Mm.
number of different opportunities. Again, this is confirmation. I am on the path that I'm supposed to be on. And so when opportunities come, I can't take every opportunity, but the
Mhm.
ones that speak to my heart in a way that really brings the expertise and the background that I have together for something powerful to serve others, those are the ones that I lean into. And whether it is a 3 page or 3 paragraph, I take the same joy, motivation, and hold each word precious because I know I'm serving people on the other side.
Yeah, yeah. You said it is a labor of love. And I who write fiction, I often feel the same way, but I get so excited. I start to, I'll tell my husband, I'll say, oh, I finally made it to the point where the characters are speaking to me. So it's like that point is when the characters just really start to tell their own story and the story really starts to develop and form. And it's one of the most exciting parts in the writing process, and it is so, like, up until that point it is a labor of love. I feel sometimes, like I'm forcing it. So do you have to do like, so it varies with research. Like, I think all writers have to do some form of research, even
Mhm.
if they're writing fiction. Because
Absolutely.
and that's as simple as, like, well, if you wanna say, like, somebody is a football player, well, then you wanna include some facets of football, which means you probably might wanna do some type of research around the sport or what it's like to be a player in the NFL. So, what kinds of research do you feel that you have to do for your books to make them accurate? Because, like, for your books, with them being in the educational field and everything like that, I'm sure you can call a lot on what you already know, but then it's like you have to take it a step further, right?
Absolutely. I was a teacher in the classroom for 8 years or so. And
Mhm,
so what I do is I stay abreast of current educational research. So
mhm,
I'm always reading, and not everything, but those things that speak to my heart and fuel my purpose. But I
mhm,
try to spend as much time in the classroom as possible.
mhm,
And so if there's a teacher that says, like, come into my room or give me some feedback, and even if it's not like a feedback situation, just let me in the classroom. Like, I want to spend time around children. I want to see how they learn and what makes them tick, or
mm,
maybe ways that they're disenfranchised, or maybe they don't have the space to make those decisions. And so, as many times as I can get into the classroom, I'm trying to find as many ways. And any time that I get a chance to teach, whether it's children or adults, I take note of how people learn and what is successful for them and how many choices they get to make. Much of the work that I do is about investing the power that we have to honor each of our learners. And
mm,
so the only way that I can do that is to continue that practice. And
mm,
then, as a lifelong learner, anytime that I am learning or taking a class or sitting in an environment where information is expected to be transferred, I'm thinking about what the designer of the instructional experience did to reach for me, or
mm.
if they don't reach for me at all. I recently took a class on a statistics course where I don't even know what the professor looks like. He never posted a video, literally would post PowerPoints, notes, and reading assignments, and then give tests. I
Oh,
was like, but I thought we established I don't know statistics because I signed up for the class. But
right,
I had
right.
to find ways to teach myself. But in that process, I thought this is what learners go through when the course is not constructed to reach for them, when they just
Mm,
have to figure it out for themselves. And if you're left to figure it out for yourself, you're either going to stick with it or give up or just fail. And it's not your fault, it's a faulty design. And so
mm,
I just really want educators to know and see that, and to be not only inspired to do something different, but have the why behind it. So there's research, there is story, there is like practice and tinkering, so that every teacher will have the scaffolds that they need in order to bring about the ultimate goal, which is to teach, to educate. And I can only say that I'm an educator if learning is happening on the other side. So
mm,
that is really what the research that I do has to be personal and
mhm.
passion filled, but it also has to, I have to harness that. I have to find it, and then I have to capture it in a way that I can then turn that around and give it back to my readers.
Mm. I'm starting to see how everything is connecting with you, with
Hmm.
the engineering and you designing the studies, the writing to help you writing the book, the classroom to helping you really want to reach back and teach those. And I think that brings up a really valuable point in a lot of writers' lives, because sometimes we think that we're all the stuff that we've done in the past has nothing to do with what we're doing now. But really, we've been building up to this point our entire lives, our entire lives. And I love how everything that you've done really just connects and comes full circle in your book and your journey. I love it.
God
So,
wastes nothing. He does not
yes.
waste not one single thing. And Corey, I'll tell you, in 2009, I had this like huge, I don't know, like almost like a download. And so I wrote this book.
Mhm,
Um, this is a different book. This is the one I thought that I would publish. This is the one that I
mhm,
was like querying public publishing companies,
uh-huh,
and it was a Christian book, inspirational in nature, and it was like scripture, and I had a literary agent at the time,
mhm,
and I felt like I knew for sure that this was what God had asked me to do. So I wrote it all down, fix it up. I'm editing, I have it all together, and nothing really came of it. And so I was wondering, like, well, I thought that this is the book that I was supposed to publish. I thought that I've done everything that you asked me
mhm,
to do. And so when the opportunity came to write the educational book, I literally was in like a writer fog. I was thinking, but I did all of the writing and everything that I thought I was supposed to do, and I
mhm,
didn't feel like I wasted my time, but I just was confused. I had
mm,
never imagined writing an educational book. Even
mm,
though I was an educator, even though I
yeah,
had lots of success in the classroom, even though my students and I still, all of the students that I've had, still have a great relationship over the years, that's where I amassed this expertise. But it was so fueled in passion and love that I
mm,
never thought that this was a book that I could write. Now,
yeah,
lo and behold, I write this book, it sells, and then I still have the other book that I've done nothing with. And I'm like,
yeah,
well, and I have a keen sense of knowing that there is a time and a place
mm,
where that book will be used, but it won't be wasted. So
yeah,
it's just things like that. So we have to know, number one, we follow the favor of God, and we um, really lean into knowing that there is a time, there is a place, and our words won't be wasted. But we also have to be mindful that there is a time and a place, and we don't have to push and we don't have to force.
mm,
So if you feel like you're kicking down the doors and there's no result, that's a invitation to come back to the craft, to
mm,
love on it enough to dig in to see where you can improve, where you can grow, or where you can celebrate others. So I just spent those years in between joining book teams, promoting other people's work, maybe reading things. And when I read something that speaks to my heart and soul, I
mhm,
reach out to the author because I know how much that means as an author.
yes,
And I
yes,
just find ways to uplift with my words until that is published. I'm just going
mhm.
to stand by. So that's what we're doing.
It, it takes a lot of discipline to write.
It does.
And so it takes discipline to write when you have a full-time job, but I'm wondering, does it take more discipline to write knowing that like now writing is your profession? Like, so how do you maintain like a daily writing routine? How do you stay focused and disciplined enough to be like, to, I guess, to not slack off?
Oh, that it is so hard, especially when you have the time to manufacture. So I don't
Mm,
have a schedule that someone else set, so I set my time for writing.
mm,
What I find to be effective, and I have seasons or spurts of serious writing. I don't know, I call it like serious writing, like, okay, we're gonna get this done. And then I
yeah.
have times, because it's my vocation, it's my calling, but it's also my
Mhm,
passion and my joy. So I
mm,
have times to just play with writing that's not for somebody else's eyes, it's just for me to do what I love to do. And
right.
so in the writing routine that was effective for me to complete projects, I
Mhm.
have and you will hear my faith interspersed throughout. So if faith is not what fuels you, there you will find out what is. For me, I'll have what is called a business meeting with God before I
Okay.
write. I had to
Yeah.
shift my strategy because I would sit down to the blank screen and feel like this pressure, and the pressure was a barrier. So I had to
Mm,
redesign my writing process so that I would have what I need. So I was listening to this podcast. Shout out to Shay Bynes from
okay.
Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. If you
Okay.
listen to her, there's a episode of her podcast where she talked about George Washington Carver.
Mm,
George Washington Carver, the peanut man, right? We all know
yeah.
he did all these experiments. Well, he was a devout Christian, and he would go into his lab And he said the guy told him, don't take a textbook, don't take anything, but he would pray. And he would say, God, show me the secrets of the peanut. And,
Mm.
300 patents later, right? And he would go in with a flour and say, show me the secrets of the flour. And so he would pray.
Mm.
I took that same strategy. So I'm like, all right, I pray for my readers before anybody even has the book. I'm praying for them. I'm
Mm.
praying for those who I'm working with or consulting with. I'm praying for what's coming in. And so, yep, I read a lot of research. I'm in a lot of classrooms, but when it's the page and I want me and God to be very clear on what it is, the message that he wants me to communicate. When I switch my strategy to that business meeting with God before
Mm-hmm.
writing, instead of setting a number of words or a number of minutes, I
Yeah.
would literally pray, God, what do you want to do today? Some of the days it was actually typing and writing, and these ideas would come, and I would feel like I would be overloaded, and I would have to type, and I would spend hours. There were
Mm-hmm.
other days where he would say, I want you to call such and such. And then I would make the phone call, have the conversation, not understand the connection, go on about my business.
Mm.
Later in the process, be like, oh my goodness. And then here we go. So
Yeah.
it's a process that I don't pressure myself for the writing to be writing every day. Some of the
Okay.
writing is research, some of the writing is conversation, some of the writing is reading, but it all fits together when we create space to really receive and then pour
Mm-hmm.
out what we've heard. So it's just an echoing back of what you receive from the source.
So it's really just trusting the process, like having faith that what you're doing will count. Like as you said earlier, God wastes nothing.
Not one thing. And so it can feel like, and I just want to speak to writers right now who feel frustrated, who are
Mm-hmm.
maybe in the middle of a project,
Yeah.
who maybe feel like they've put all this hard work into a project that isn't going anywhere. It is not wasted. This requires us to be good stewards of the gift that he's given us. There was a point in time where I had signed up for every seminar, every this, every that, but I wasn't really taking the time to write. Writing is a gift that must be used, it must be stewarded. And even if there is not one person on the other side of it yet, there is a diligence that we take when we pursue the gift with the seriousness that is required. And so that means that we have to write, that we have to write, that we have to write, that we have to come to that reckoning in ourselves when writing is enough, the writing itself. Then we have to take that gift and say, okay, then we can trust someone to edit, and we have to allow all of the resources to come to us in the way that they're supposed to, so that we can give life to this gift of
Mm-hmm.
words on a page. This is not a process in isolation. It requires collaboration, but the right collaborations. And if you've had missteps along the way, or you feel frustrated by the process itself, come back to the gift itself. The gift
Mm-hmm.
is like a seed. It will always flower. It will always come. And we don't know what's happening beneath the surface. We can't see what is happening while the seed is buried, but we can certainly see the fruit when it's time. And so we tend to that seed. We water, we nurture. Some fertilizer going to come along the way, but we know that that works for our good as well.
Mm-hmm.
Writing is a gift, and it requires us to steward that gift, to multiply that gift. It's not just, I think we see publication and we
Mm-hmm.
think that that is the end all be all, but
Mm-hmm.
with every publication comes the time and the work and the tears and the collaboration and the frustration and the uncertainty on the other side before it becomes this gift.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we work through all of those things, we have a diligence and a duty to write. And if you're not writing every day, don't beat yourself up. The times that you do write,
Mm-hmm.
steward that. Go back and read your writing. Go back and love on your writing. I found a notebook of poems that I wrote probably in 2004 or 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent time with my own voice from another time in my life.
Mm.
And I allowed myself to read it and not edit and not rewrite, but just to receive what I had given to the world and just
Mm.
sitting in a notebook on a shelf. It's
Yeah.
okay. Enjoy your writing, enjoy the process. And when the process is not enjoyable, stick to the fight. When your heart is hit, is when things get tough, that we must not quit. That's a poem. We
Mm.
get in there and we just continue to work at it. Find community, join a writing community, take the feedback, practice listening, practice giving. This is an artwork that is sustainable. It
Mm-hmm.
will make room for you. It is financially it's of financial gain. You can gain from it, but not if it's not a part of who you're called to be and
Mm.
what you're passionate about. There has to be heart and humanity that we put into writing, or else we lose to robots and AI. We
Yes.
have something to give this world, and it is a gift, but we have to first see our gift as a gift first.
I just love listening to you talk. I could probably just like listen all day. Um, but can you share a particularly memorable or meaningful moment um, from your writing journey? And that could be, from the beginning. So since second grade, right? Just share something that was really special to you or meaningful to you.
One moment that was particularly meaningful to me, I'm going to share one that's recent and maybe one that was a little bit farther back.
Okay.
I recently had the opportunity to travel to Japan. I was able
Nice.
to visit some classrooms, and one of the classrooms was using some of the strategies from my book to
Oh,
teach the
that's
class.
beautiful.
And so to imagine that people in Japan would read my words, I think
Mhm.
that was mind blowing for me. But as I was in one of the schools and I'm walking down the hallway with my host, there was a woman who was like literally running down the hall. She said, "Wait, wait, wait." And so I turned around and she had my book up on her phone and she said, I read your book. I love your book. And she was asking me to sign my autograph. I said, but it's on your phone, girl. I don't know how we go. But she was just asking me to sign like a piece of paper, just to sign an
Okay.
autograph. So in talking with her, hearing what she took from the book and how she interpreted the book is
Mhm.
about anti-racism and it's mostly in the United States context, right?
Mhm.
But she gave me how she interpreted the book in the Japanese context.
Mm.
For your words to have reach, that's one. For them to reach and then be applied, that's
Mm.
two. And for someone to think that the words were so impactful that they would reach to you for you to sign an autograph for them, um, faith encourages faith.
Yeah.
And that was a pivotal moment for me to remember that the words, I don't get to choose who receives these words, but I hope that when they do, that there's a gift that they can unwrap and find something for themselves. That's my hope. That's my prayer. And to see people on the other side of that prayer was like super impactful to me. Another
Mm.
moment that in my writing career, these are moments that kind of give you that fuel, like keep going, you got this, let's go. So there was
Yeah.
a writing contest, and I'm not big on like writing contests, right? So I
Mhm.
was like, there was a poetry contest at Cleveland State, and so I came in second place. And the writer that I came in second place behind was Daniel Gray Cantar, who is a phenomenal poet.
Uh-huh.
And he's someone that I'm a fan of, that I watched him in the Black Poetic Society at Cleveland State, huge name in the Cleveland writing scene.
Mhm.
And I was in second place behind him.
Yeah.
And it was just this moment of your words matter, that your name will be in rooms that maybe you've never stepped into or walked into. And
Right.
sometimes it just requires you to put yourself out there, even in ways that you are uncomfortable with or that you don't necessarily like, that when you're called to write, the whole purpose of writing is for someone to be able to read. And they can't do that if you got it hemmed up, tied up, release it. And so it was one of those moments where I won like a monetary prize. And
Uh-huh.
then there was a poetry reading. And I said to myself, you're a writer and you just made money. And so I had to tell my grandma over and over again, like,
Right.
I'll be making money, grandma. So it was just one of those moments that proved to me that even in the uncomfortable spaces, there's a reward far more than monetary that reminds you that you're doing what you're supposed to do. So, right.
Mhm. Mhm. All right, so we are getting ready to wrap this up. I have one last question for you. So the question would be, has the shift from or has the shift to full-time writing changed your views of success? So, so as a teacher, maybe and I'm just throwing some things out here. So as a teacher, your views of success might be all of your students passing one of the tests or assessments or something like that. And then, but writers have different terms of success. Some of them might be like, well, I want to get 50 reviews, or I want 50 5-star reviews, or I want to be able to work full time, or, there's just different parts or different facets of success to each writer. So has and with the different facets, has your view of success changed?
Success has always been a word that I've weighed. And when I think about what success is for me, success is defined as obedience to God. Win,
Mm,
lose, or draw, obedience to God. And
mhm,
so in the education space, I wanted to be obedient when I was in the classroom. To the only time that I could say I am successful is when my students are successful.
mhm,
And when I was in the classroom and they would take the standardized test, my students would wow the school, the state, all those who knew, but the test was never our goal. The
mm,
goal was to connect to what they wanted to do in life. When I
mm,
see my former students leading movements, challenging the status quo,
mm.
fighting for the rights of others, being successful doctors, successful in Ivy League schools, at HBCUs, successful in music, their success is my success.
Yeah.
And as I became an administrator, it was, how do I create this environment where teachers are successful, where they have what they need? And that measure of success, being obedient to God and seeing those who I'm serving walking in everything that they're supposed to walk in, that is
Mm,
my measure. My writing is the same. And as I transition into full time writing, speaking, the goal is always to be able to empower people to make the decisions, to have the strategy, to know how to set a goal, how to
mhm,
name a barrier, and design to eliminate barriers to learning. That
mhm,
is still the goal. And even when I write inspirational or Christian writings, devotionals, I have a Bible plan on the Bible app, a few of those.
mm,
Even when I write those, the goal is to have a goal for your life that is fueled by faith, to name the barriers that may come at that goal. And there are plenty of barriers, but then to design a life that uplifts God in the face of those barriers and eliminates
mm,
those barriers. And so that is success for me when I can write something, speak something, participate in something that teaches those on the other side of my words how to attack the barriers and see the success, then that success is shared. So I will say my biggest success in life is seeing those who I teach or those who lean into my writing or my speaking, seeing them succeed.
nice. You can't go wrong there. You can't. Um, yeah, that's just gotta be a lot of fulfillment in there too, from that. So I appreciate you as an educator, as a person, as a writer, as an engineer, all that. And I want to thank you for being on this interview today. I really enjoyed our conversation. Do you have any last parting words for the audience? Where can they find you online? Where can they find your book? How can they book you if they need to?
So you can find me Building Blocks of Brilliance. The name of the book is Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning, Building Expressways to Success, but buildingblocksofbrilliance.com. And on whatever we're calling Twitter these days, it is
Yeah.
FRITZTESHA, Fritz Tesha. And you can find me on any socials as Fritz Tesha. My last words are, the money will come when the
Mm.
heart, the mission, and the passion is aligned. And so allow your gift to make room for you while you make room for cultivating the gift.
Nice, nice. Again, thank you so much for those of you who are watching or have caught a clip. I wish you a joy-filled day. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, that is it for this episode. Whether you watched on YouTube, listened on your podcast platform, or saw a snippet on social media, I hope that it was valuable for you and that you will return for another episode of Ink and Inspiration. Have a peaceful, prosperous, and joy-filled rest of your day. Catch you later, social fam.